The Sino-Vietnamese War was a conflict between China and Vietnam that took place from February 17, 1979, to March 16, 1979. According to unofficial statistics, the war resulted in approximately 26,000 battle deaths and 37,000 injuries on the Chinese side, and 30,000 battle deaths and 32,000 injuries on the Vietnamese side. In addition, there were hundreds of thousands of civilian casualties. On the early morning of February 17, 1979, the CCP launched a massive artillery bombardment of Vietnam's northern border areas, including Lao Cai, Mong Sai, Lang Son, Mong Cam, and Sao Bang. Following the shelling, approximately 60,000 Chinese troops advanced into Vietnam through 26 border crossings, capturing 11 municipalities in northern Vietnam within 2 days. However, the Chinese offensive was met with fierce resistance from the Vietnamese army, leading to grueling battle scenes. China's troops, poorly trained and equipped after a decade of political turmoil during the Cultural Revolution, faced significant challenges, including command mismanagement and coordination failures. Despite holding an offensive advantage, the Chinese forces suffered heavy casualties, with more than 4,000 soldiers killed in the first 2 days alone. As the war unfolded, the Soviet Union began deploying warships in the South China Sea and provided air support to Vietnam. Soviet military advisors also arrived in Hanoi to assist the Vietnamese forces, with military losses exceeding expectations and mounting international pressure for a ceasefire. The CCP announced a sudden withdrawal of its troops on March 6, 1979, claiming that the war's objectives had been achieved. Following the troop withdrawal, China and Vietnam continued to engage in small-scale skirmishes along the Sino-Vietnamese border, particularly in the Lao Shan and Pha Ca mountain areas, until December 30, 1999, when Jiang Zemin ratified the Sino-Vietnamese Land Boundary Treaty, which ceded the Lao Shan and Pha Ca mountains to Vietnam. The CCP initially justified the war by citing territorial disputes and Vietnam's expulsion of Chinese nationals, but this rationale is widely considered tenuous. At the time, the disputed land area between China and Vietnam was less than 100 square kilometers, and as both countries were communist, the issue could have been resolved through negotiations. Additionally, while Vietnam expelled 160,000 Chinese nationals, the CCP remained silent when the Khmer Rouge massacred hundreds of thousands of ethnic Chinese in Cambodia around the same period. Historians argue that Deng Xiaoping initiated the Sino-Vietnamese War to advance his political ambitions and signal allegiance to the United States. Diplomatic relations between China and the U.S. were established on January 1, 1979, and Deng Xiaoping visited the United States from January 28 to February 8, 1979. The war broke out on February 17, shortly after Deng's return to China, suggesting that it was intended to send a message to the Soviet Union and curry favor with the U.S. Following the war, Deng was able to consolidate his control over the CCP, the government, and the military. In 1979, China was reeling from the devastating effects of the Cultural Revolution, with widespread economic and social instability threatening the CCP's rule. One of the motivations for the war was to divert attention from domestic political and economic crises, and to stoke nationalist sentiments. After the Sino-Vietnamese War, Sino-US relations entered a golden period of nearly 10 years, during which the CCP received economic and technological support from the West, allowing it to maintain power despite the internal challenges it faced.